The stars twinkled in the vastness of space, and the cold emptiness was only broken by the occasional hum of a spaceship's engine. On the outer edges of the galaxy, far from the well-traveled routes of safer systems, the notorious rogue Scythe pirate crew was preparing for their next raid. These pirates, known for their ruthlessness and skill in raiding, had heard of a new target, a ship from the legendary Deathworlders. The crew of the rogue Scythe was composed of a mix of species from various planets, each with their own motivations for turning to piracy. Some were there for the treasure, others for revenge, and a few simply because they enjoyed the thrill of the chase. But one thing they all shared was a deep, almost unshakable belief in their own superiority. They had raided countless ships, from merchant freighters to military transports, and always came out on top. The pirates believed no ship could withstand their skill. Captain Corin, a tall and muscular humanoid with sharp, cold eyes, was the leader of the crew. His confidence in his crew and their abilities was unmatched. This next target, the Deathworlder ship, should be easy, he muttered to himself as he reviewed the intel. They might be dangerous, but we've dealt with worse. His voice was filled with certainty. Around him, the crew moved quickly, preparing for the assault. The pirate's ship, a sleek, black vessel designed for speed and stealth, was ready for the mission. Every pirate was gearing up, checking weapons, ensuring their armor was secure, and testing the various scanners and tracking devices. The excitement in the air was palpable. They were about to board a Deathworlder ship, and many of them had heard the stories, the terrifying legends, about the people who came from those deadly planets. But stories were just that, stories. No one took them seriously. The Deathworlders, as the pirates had heard, were a mysterious race, often mentioned in hushed tones by those who had survived encounters with them. According to the tales, Deathworlders were the survivors of planets so hostile and dangerous that only the strongest could live there. From fierce, violent creatures to toxic atmospheres, every part of their worlds was designed to kill. It was said that they didn't fear death because they had come so close to it for so long that it no longer held any power over them. Yet, despite these tales, the pirates were undeterred. They had always managed to outsmart their prey. They had made a name for themselves as the most feared pirates in the galaxy. Corin's mind was focused on one thing: the wealth that awaited them once they boarded the Deathworlder ship. "The ship's systems are strange," said Thera, a tech expert and one of the most trusted members of the crew. Her fingers flew over the console, scanning the coordinates and the minimal data available about the Deathworlder vessel. "I can't get a clear read on their systems. There's something off about this ship." Corin frowned but didn't show any sign of doubt. "We'll deal with it when we get there. No need to worry about systems. We're here to take what's ours." Despite Corin's confidence, a strange unease began to grow among the crew. As they neared the target ship, the energy readings grew increasingly odd. It was almost as if the Deathworlder ship was trying to hide from them, cloaking itself in a way that made it impossible to get a solid scan. Thera furrowed her brow as her screens blinked, showing fragmented data. "Captain, the ship, it's not showing any weapons. None at all," Thera said, her voice filled with confusion. She had expected to find hidden weapon systems, like many ships had, but this ship didn't even list any. "That's strange," Corin muttered. "Most ships, especially military ones, have weapons or at least something to defend themselves. Let's not overthink it. We can handle whatever comes our way." Despite his words, Corin's mind wandered for a moment. The Deathworlder ships were known to be tough, but not listing weapons. That was unusual. Pirates would often exploit weaknesses like this. But this felt different. The crew gathered at the boarding bay, ready to disembark. They had a plan: approach the Deathworlder ship, disable its external defenses, and board. Once they were aboard, they would take what they wanted and leave quickly. They were used to these types of raids. It was simple, efficient, and they were experts at it. But something about this mission felt off. The air on the ship seemed heavier, and the silence was eerie. The Deathworlder ship floated before them, large and imposing, with no external lights or movement. It was as if it had been abandoned. Corin gave the order, and the boarding party went to work. Their ship's airlock hissed as it made contact with the Deathworlder vessel, and the pirates, clad in their armored suits, stepped into the unknown. Inside, the silence was deafening. There were no sounds of life, no humming of systems, no buzzing of lights, just emptiness. The interior of the Deathworlder ship was vast, with long, dark corridors and high ceilings. The walls seemed cold and metallic, their surfaces reflecting the flickering light from the pirates' helmets. Everything was eerily clean, without a single sign of life. "Where is everyone?" Thera whispered as she checked her scanner. "There's no one here. The ship's systems are active, but there's no crew." Corin's jaw tightened. "Stay focused. The treasure is here. We'll find it." As they moved deeper into the ship, they came across signs of damage. Burn marks, strange claw-like indentations on the walls, and a few broken security drones scattered on the floor. But there were no bodies, no blood, just more emptiness. "Something's not right," muttered Goro, a tall, brutish pirate with a cybernetic arm. He was always the first to sense danger. "This feels like a trap." "Enough," Corin snapped. "We're here to raid, not second-guess. Stay alert and keep moving." But even Corin couldn't shake the uneasy feeling crawling up his spine. Every step he took felt heavier. The ship seemed to be watching them, waiting for something. He could hear his own breathing, loud and heavy, in his helmet. It was hard to ignore the sense that something was lurking just beyond his vision. As they continued exploring the ship's dark corridors, they came across a large cargo hold. It looked like a storage area, but it was completely empty. No supplies, no crates, just cold, metal floors stretching out in all directions. The door slammed shut behind them. A loud mechanical noise echoed through the ship. Corin's heart skipped a beat. The temperature in the room seemed to drop suddenly, and a strange, unfamiliar hum filled the air. "Get ready," Corin ordered, trying to mask his own growing anxiety. But deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong, and it was only a matter of time before they found out why. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. The cold silence of the Deathworlder ship was unnerving, like a thick fog hanging in the air. The crew of the rogue Scythe stood frozen in place, each of them casting wary glances around the empty cargo hold. The doors to the hold had slammed shut behind them with a force that echoed through the ship's steel walls, sending a shockwave of unease through the pirates. Corin, the captain, stood at the front, his sharp eyes scanning the dark corners of the vast room. He motioned for the crew to stay quiet, their footsteps the only sound as they cautiously moved into the dimly lit hold. The flickering lights above them cast long, eerie shadows across the cold, metal floors. There was no sign of life, not even the usual hum of a ship's systems. It was as if the ship had been abandoned, except for them. Thera, the crew's tech expert, was already checking her equipment, tapping furiously at her wrist scanner. She muttered to herself, trying to get a better read on the ship's systems. "This doesn't make sense," she said under her breath. "The systems are online, but nothing's responding. It's like the ship's been locked down." Goro, the heavy-set pirate with the cybernetic arm, grunted as he scanned the area. His deep voice rumbled in the silence. "I told you, Corin. Something's off. This isn't just some abandoned ship. We've walked into a trap." Corin turned sharply to face Goro, his jaw clenched. "We're not turning back. We've come this far, and I'll be damned if we leave empty-handed." His voice was firm, but even he couldn't shake the unease creeping into his bones. He had seen enough strange things in space to know that no situation was ever as simple as it seemed. But this was different. "Keep your eyes open," Corin added, turning back toward the hold's vast expanse. "And keep your weapons ready. We don't know what's waiting for us." As the crew continued their cautious exploration of the cargo hold, they came across more signs of something being terribly wrong. The floor was scuffed, like something had been dragged across it. There were strange, claw-like marks on the walls that made no sense. Were they made by a ship's equipment? Or something else? The pirates didn't know, but the thought made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. Thera's voice broke the silence again. "I've hacked into the ship's logs. There's something strange here, Corin. There's a record of a battle, a fight between the Deathworlders, and something else. But all the files are corrupted. It's like someone intentionally erased the records." Goro scowled. "They're hiding something. I can feel it." Corin didn't respond immediately. His eyes scanned the dark corners of the cargo hold again, but he saw nothing out of the ordinary. His grip tightened on the hilt of his weapon. "We'll find out what they're hiding soon enough," he said, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. The crew continued to move deeper into the ship, making their way through the labyrinthine hallways. Every turn seemed to lead to another empty room or another dark corridor, as though they were walking through the belly of a massive ghost ship. There was no sign of any crew, no sign of any movement. But the longer they stayed, the more Corin felt the weight of the silence pressing in on him. "It's too quiet," Goro muttered. "I don't like it." Thera looked up from her scanner. "I can't even get a clear reading of the crew. There should be at least something. An AI system, an emergency beacon, something. But this ship is a black hole." "I know," Corin said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I've been on plenty of ships, and I'd never seen one like this. I don't care how strange it is, though. We came for one thing, and one thing only: the riches." But even as he spoke, he felt his earlier confidence begin to waver. This mission wasn't going as planned. He could feel it in his gut. The crew turned a corner and found themselves facing another large chamber, though this one was different from the others. It was colder, darker. There was no power in this room at all. The air felt thick, and the walls were covered in strange, ancient symbols, scratched into the metal like a language that hadn't been seen for centuries. Thera was the first to speak. "This room doesn't feel like the rest of the ship. There's no power. But these markings..." She bent closer, inspecting the symbols. "These look like warnings." The crew gathered around her, eyeing the strange carvings. They were crude, and yet they seemed to be telling a story of survival and death. But it wasn't a story they could understand. "I've seen enough," Goro growled. "Let's find the treasure and leave." Corin stepped forward. "Agreed, but don't let your guard down. There's something here, something we haven't seen yet." Suddenly, a loud clanging noise echoed from somewhere deep within the ship. It was a sharp metallic sound that made the pirates freeze. Then came the low hum of machinery starting up somewhere far off, followed by the eerie screech of an airlock being opened. The ship had come alive. But the pirates didn't know why or how. Corin's eyes narrowed. "Stay sharp. We're not alone. I want every exit covered." The crew split up, taking their positions as the eerie hum grew louder. The ship's systems were awakening, one by one, as if the vessel itself was coming to life after a long, dormant period. The silence that had ruled for so long was shattered, replaced by the mechanical noises of engines starting, doors opening, and lights flickering back on in various sections of the ship. "Something's wrong," Thera whispered, her voice trembling. This isn't just a trap. It's a warning. They're warning us to leave." But it was too late for that. Corin was already moving forward, determined to press on. "We've come this far, and I'm not backing down now." The crew followed him, weapons ready, every sense alert to whatever dangers lay ahead. They made their way toward the heart of the ship, where the readings seemed to be the strongest. It was there that Corin felt an unexplainable pull, as if the ship itself was guiding them to something they were meant to find. As they approached a massive reinforced door, the hum grew louder, and a warning light flashed overhead. The words Access DNID blinking in red letters. The door was sealed, but the pirates were determined to force their way through. They had been through worse. Nothing could stop them now. But as Corin reached for the override, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "You should not have come here." The voice was calm, emotionless, and yet it carried an unmistakable threat. The crew froze in place. It was not just a warning. It was a statement. The ship had been waiting for them. Corin turned to his crew, a grim expression on his face. "Stay close. Whatever happens, we don't back down." And with that, the pirates prepared for what they knew was coming. The real battle was about to begin. The cold, mechanical voice that echoed through the ship's speakers sent a shiver down the spines of the pirates. "You should not have come here." The words hung in the air like a threat, their meaning sinking into the pirates' minds, but they did not flinch. Corin stood tall, his jaw set in determination. His crew had faced countless dangers, and this was no different. At least, that's what he told himself. The crew stood in uneasy silence, weapons raised and alert, but no one moved. The voice didn't speak again, and after a long moment, it seemed like the ship had fallen silent once more. But that silence wasn't comforting. It was ominous. The hum of the engines, the strange whir of the life support systems, all of it was back. It felt like the ship was alive, watching, waiting, as if it had been asleep, and now it was waking up, aware of their presence. "Captain," Thera spoke, her voice steady but with a hint of concern. "The ship's systems are activating, but they're not responding to any of our commands. It's like it's deliberately locking us out. I can't even get access to the comms." Corin's eyes narrowed as he scanned the door in front of them. The reinforced hatch was solid, its surface smooth and without any visible controls. The warning light above the door blinked ominously, but there was no way in unless they broke through. "We're not leaving," Corin said coldly. "Get to work on the door, Thera. Goro, make sure the crew is ready for anything. Everyone else, stay alert." Goro, the heavily muscled pirate with a cybernetic arm, grunted but nodded, his eyes scanning the dark hallway for any movement. He took position near the doorway, his weapon at the ready. The rest of the crew spread out, keeping their senses sharp. Thera moved quickly to the door, her fingers flying over her wrist console. Her face was tense, focused, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "I can't get a clear signal. There's something in the ship's core that's interfering with my systems. It's not just a ship, it's something else, something far more advanced." "Don't get distracted," Corin barked. "We've come this far. Get that door open." Thera nodded, trying to push the unease aside. She had never encountered anything like this before. The ship's systems were ancient, yet somehow still functional. It was as though the ship had been waiting for them, and its response to their presence had been calculated, deliberate. As Thera worked on the door's security system, a strange noise filled the hallway. It was soft at first, almost like a hum, but quickly grew louder, more distinct. It was mechanical. Then came the unmistakable sound of something sliding across the floor, something heavy. Thera's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Something's moving on the ship, coming toward us." The crew tensed. Goro's hand clenched around his weapon, and the rest of the pirates exchanged wary glances. Corin's gaze fixed on the dark corridor ahead, his mind racing. He could hear it now. Footsteps, slow but deliberate. "Stay in formation," Corin ordered, his voice low and commanding. "Whatever it is, we'll deal with it when it shows itself." The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then the lights above them flickered. Shadows shifted, stretching along the walls, growing longer. The air around them seemed to thicken, like something was pressing down on them from all sides. "Captain, we're not alone," Thera whispered, backing away from the door's panel. "There's something in the walls. I can feel it." Before Corin could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows at the end of the corridor. It was tall, taller than any pirate on the crew, and its shape was indistinct in the dim light. The figure was moving toward them slowly, its footsteps deliberate, as though it knew they were watching. For a moment, no one moved. Then, without warning, the figure lunged forward with terrifying speed. Its form shifted, revealing a horrifying sight. An alien warrior, clad in armor that looked more like a part of its body than something worn. The creature's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and it carried a weapon that seemed to pulse with energy. The pirates reacted instantly. Goro fired first, his weapon roaring as a blast of energy shot toward the creature. But the alien didn't flinch. Instead, it moved in a blur, sidestepping the shot with ease, and retaliated with an attack of its own. The pirates scattered as the warrior swung its weapon, some sort of bladed staff, cutting through the air with lethal precision. Corin ducked just in time, barely avoiding the strike. The creature's strength was unlike anything they had encountered. It wasn't just fast, it was skilled. The blade of the staff slammed into the floor where Corin had been standing, leaving a deep gouge in the metal. "Retreat," Corin shouted, realizing they couldn't take the creature on in close quarters. It was too powerful, too fast. The pirates fired their weapons, but the alien moved like a shadow, dodging every shot, and each time it countered with a devastating strike. Thera was the next to react. "Captain, I need more time," she yelled as she scrambled to get the door open. Corin's mind raced. There was no way they could hold their ground against a creature like that. They needed to get out, fast. But the door, their only means of escape, was still locked. Thera worked furiously, her fingers moving in quick, precise motions, but the creature wasn't giving them any time. Goro fired again, this time aiming for the creature's legs, hoping to disable it. But again, the alien dodged, closing the distance between them with terrifying speed. It lunged at Goro, its bladed staff raised high. In that instant, Corin acted. He sprinted toward Goro, knocking the pirate out of the way just in time as the staff swung down. The blade scraped across Corin's armor, leaving a deep gash, but it didn't penetrate far enough to seriously injure him. Goro scrambled to his feet, panic in his eyes, but Corin shouted, "Get to Thera. She's almost got it." The crew regrouped, retreating toward Thera, who was still struggling with the door's security. The alien followed, relentless, its glowing eyes locked on its prey. It raised its weapon once more, preparing to strike. But just as the creature lunged again, there was a loud, sudden kilovenke. The door, finally, opened. Without wasting a moment, Corin shoved Thera forward, signaling the rest of the crew to retreat through the door. The pirate crew scrambled into the next room, slamming the door behind them just in time to hear the alien's frustrated growl as it collided with the now-closed barrier. Panting heavily, the pirates backed away from the door, their hearts racing. The room they'd entered was a small, isolated section of the ship, one that appeared to have been abandoned long ago. It was filled with discarded equipment and crates, as though the Deathworlders had once used it for storage. But now it was their refuge. For a moment, no one spoke. The crew was still in shock, their adrenaline pumping, their hands trembling from the encounter. "What the hell was that?" Goro asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Corin wiped the sweat from his brow, his mind still racing. "I don't know. But that thing, whatever it is, it's not the last one. We're not just dealing with a ship here. This place is alive, and it's got something to protect." Thera stood at the back, still panting, her hands shaking. That was no ordinary warrior. I think that thing was part of the ship. It was linked to it. The Deathworlders don't just live here. They are the ship. Corin's eyes darkened. Then we're in worse trouble than we thought. As the crew caught their breath, the silence of the ship enveloped them once again. But this time, they knew it wasn't the calm before a storm. It was the silence of something far more dangerous, something far more deadly. They had just unlocked the first layer of the Deathworlder's terrifying secret, And now, they had to survive it. The pirates stood in the dimly lit storage room, their breathing heavy, as the sound of their confrontation with the alien warrior echoed in their minds. Corin's heart pounded in his chest, but his thoughts were racing even faster. They had come here looking for treasure, riches beyond imagining, but they had found something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The creature they had just encountered was only the beginning. They knew they had to find answers, but with each passing second, it felt like the ship itself was conspiring against them. "Is everyone all right?" Corin asked, his voice steady despite the tension that rippled through the crew. Goro was the first to answer, though his voice was strained. "I'm fine, just a few scratches. But that thing. I've never seen anything like it. It moved like it was part of the ship itself." Thura, her face pale and her hands still shaking, nodded in agreement. "That wasn't just a soldier or a guard. It was something more. I'm sure of it. It's like it was integrated into the ship's systems. I think the Deathworlders didn't just build this ship. They are this ship. They've become one with it." Corin's eyes narrowed as he processed her words. So, the Deathworlders are more than just a race of warriors. They've fused with the ship. That explains why the ship's systems feel alive, why it's reacting to us the way it has. "Exactly," Thura confirmed. "The ship isn't just a machine. It's a living entity. And whatever those Deathworlders did to connect with it, they've created something. Something that doesn't want us here." Corin clenched his fists, his mind already forming a plan. "We came here for a reason. We need to find that treasure. And we need to find out what the hell happened to these Deathworlders. But we can't afford to make any more mistakes. We're not going to make it far if we keep running into those monsters." Goro said bluntly, "We barely made it out of that last room. We need to figure out how to fight back." Corin's eyes hardened. "We'll figure that out when we get to it. For now, we press on. But we're not going in blind this time." Thura tapped her wrist console again, scanning the room for any possible exits. "I've been able to hack into the ship's systems, but it's like walking through a maze. It keeps shifting. The layout of this place changes. It's trying to keep us from getting anywhere important. Then we need to get to the heart of the ship," Corin said. "Whatever it is, it's there, and it's controlling everything. If we can find the core, we can disable it or get the information we need." The pirates exchanged uneasy glances. They knew this wasn't going to be easy, but there was no turning back now. The group moved cautiously through the ship's dark corridors. They stayed in formation, their eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, every movement. The feeling of being watched never left them. The ship's silent hum was like a constant presence, pressing down on them as they made their way through narrow passageways, some of which seemed to stretch on forever. As they walked deeper into the ship, the air grew colder, and the oppressive feeling of the place seemed to tighten around them. It was as though the walls themselves were closing in, responding to their intrusion. The crew members could feel the ship's presence, like a living creature watching them, waiting for them to make a wrong move. "We need to be careful," Corin muttered. "This ship was built for war. Every step we take is a risk." "I'm picking up something," Thura said suddenly, her voice tense. She stopped walking, and everyone gathered around her. "There's a massive energy source ahead. It's in the lower levels of the ship. That's where everything seems to be converging." Goro scowled. "Sounds like where the treasure would be hidden." "Maybe," Corin said, his voice dark. "But we can't be sure. It might be where the Deathworlders are, where the ship is connected. We need to approach it with caution." The pirates continued forward, moving as quietly as they could. But the deeper they went, the more intense the ship's reactions became. The walls seemed to close in tighter, and the floor beneath their feet felt unsteady, as though the entire ship was shifting in response to their movements. A low, rumbling sound began to reverberate through the metal, and for a moment, it felt as though the ship itself was growling. Thura's scanner beeped again, more urgently this time. "Captain, We're getting close. The source of the energy is just ahead, but I think we're not alone." Suddenly, the hallway split into two, and from one of the dark passageways, they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps. More of those alien warriors. This time, they were not alone. There were dozens of them, moving in unison, as if they were waiting for the pirates to make their move. Corin cursed under his breath. "They're tracking us. They know we're getting close to the core. We need to get to that energy source now. Goro, cover the rear. Thera, can you bypass the security system for the next section?" "I'll try," Thera replied, her voice tight with concentration. The crew moved swiftly, their weapons at the ready. Corin's mind raced. They had no time to waste. If they were going to survive this, they had to reach the heart of the ship before those alien warriors closed in on them. But as they neared the energy source, the walls of the ship began to pulse with an eerie light. The floor beneath their feet vibrated, and the sound of rushing air filled the hall. It felt like the ship was alive, like it was awakening. And then, as if the ship itself had decided to reveal its true form, the hallway opened up into a vast chamber. It was massive. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing with an unnatural energy. At the center of the room stood a massive cylindrical core, its surface shimmering with what appeared to be liquid light. The energy readings were off the charts, and the air around it buzzed with an almost tangible force. "This is it," Thera whispered, awe in her voice. "This is what the Deathworlders were protecting. The ship's heart." But before they could take another step, the alien warriors appeared at the doorway, blocking their path. There were too many to fight head-on. And standing before them, at the center of the chamber, was a figure unlike any the pirates had seen before. It was an alien, tall, with a regal bearing, its armor a perfect fusion of metal and organic material, the same glow of energy that pulsed through the ship illuminating its body. The creature was more than just a warrior. It was the captain of this ship, the leader of the Deathworlders. "You should not have come here," the creature spoke, its voice resonating through the chamber, deeper and more commanding than any of the warriors they had encountered. "This ship is our home, and you will not leave." The pirates stood frozen for a moment, realizing that the situation had just become far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. Corin's voice was low and steady as he faced the alien leader. "We're not leaving without answers. We came here for the treasure, and we're taking it." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die here, like all others who have tried to take what is not theirs." The final confrontation had begun. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension. The pirates stood at the threshold, weapons drawn, hearts pounding, staring at the alien leader who had emerged from the shadows of the ship's heart. The towering figure, armored in a strange, organic-looking suit that pulsed with energy, seemed to radiate an aura of overwhelming power. This was no mere warrior. They had just encountered the captain, the very soul of the Deathworlder ship. His eyes gleamed with a cold, alien intelligence as he sized up Corin and his crew. "You dare trespass on our home?" The alien leader's voice boomed, sending a chill through the pirates. "You have come for riches, but you will only find death." Corin stepped forward, undeterred by the alien's menacing words. His crew was tense, their weapons raised, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. They knew that this was no ordinary fight. If they were going to survive this, it wasn't just strength they needed, it was strategy. "We didn't come here for death," Corin replied, his voice cold and steady. "We came for the treasure, and we're taking it, whether you like it or not." The alien's lips curled into a sneer, his sharp features contorting in an almost mocking expression. "The treasure you seek is not what you think it is. This ship, this world, it is not built on wealth. It is a weapon, a legacy of power forged in the depths of the galaxy's darkest wars." Thera, standing next to Corin, whispered under her breath, "He's right. This ship's not just about treasure, it's a weapon. That's why it's so alive. The Deathworlders have made this ship an extension of themselves. This is no mere craft. It's a force, a living entity. Enough talk, Goro growled from behind, his hand gripping his weapon tightly. We're not here for a lecture. We're here to take what's ours. The alien leader didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped forward slowly, his movements graceful but lethal. You will not take what is ours. You are nothing but intruders, and intruders must be purged. In a blink, the alien captain raised his hand, and the air around him seemed to ripple with energy. The chamber's lights flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. It was as if the very ship was responding to the captain's command. Suddenly, the room trembled, the walls vibrating with an ominous hum, and the ground beneath them seemed to shift as though alive. The core at the center of the room pulsed brighter, as if it had come to life itself, feeding off the captain's power. Corin's eyes widened in realization. It's not just the ship, it's connected to him. The captain is the heart of the ship. He controls it all. Before he could act, the ground shook violently. A blast of energy erupted from the center of the room, sending shockwaves through the air. The pirates were thrown off their feet, and the alien leader, standing untouched at the center, raised his hand once more. The energy surged forward, a visible wave of power that threatened to crush them all. Take cover, Corin shouted, as the pirates scrambled to find shelter behind scattered debris and crates. The air around them grew thick with static, as though the ship itself was attacking them. The alien's eyes burned with fury as he spoke again, his voice like a low growl. You will learn the price of your greed. This is where your journey ends. But Corin wasn't about to give up. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he refused to show fear. The pirates weren't just fighting for treasure. They were fighting for their lives. They had come too far, and they weren't going to be stopped by one alien and his ship. Thera, Corin yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. Can you shut down the core? We need to stop this ship from attacking us. Thera's face was pale, her fingers trembling as she worked furiously on her wrist console. I can try, but the ship's systems are locked down. I need access to the core's mainframe, but I'm not sure I can break through in time. We don't have time, Corin shouted, firing his weapon at the captain. But the blast was absorbed by an energy shield that flared up around the alien leader. It was like hitting an invisible wall. The captain smiled, sensing their desperation. You cannot win. The ship and I are one. Your weapons are nothing to us. In that moment, Corin's mind raced. He had to think of something, anything, to give them an edge. Then it hit him. Thera, do you still have access to the lower levels of the ship? He asked, his voice urgent. Yes, she replied, eyes wide with confusion. Why? Then we're going to the source of the power, Corin said, determination in his voice. If we can disrupt the core's connection to the ship, we might be able to stop him. We need to go to the heart of the ship. The captain's smile faded as he realized what Corin was planning. You think you can disrupt us? You are fools. You cannot stop what has already been set in motion. Without wasting another moment, Corin sprinted toward the chamber's central core, with Goro and Thera close behind. The alien captain roared in fury, and with a wave of his hand, the floor around them cracked open, revealing a deadly array of metallic tendrils that shot toward them like serpents. The tendrils hissed as they moved, their ends sharp like blades, eager to pierce through the pirate's armor. Move, Corin shouted, dodging to the side as a tendril narrowly missed him. Goro followed, charging forward with his weapon raised, slashing through the tendrils with powerful strikes. Thera was quick on their heels, using her console to fire off quick, targeted shots that disrupted the ship's mechanisms. The ship was fighting back with everything it had, but the pirates weren't backing down. Corin led the charge toward the central core, his mind focused on the one goal that could save them, disrupting the ship's connection to the captain. With every step, the ship fought harder, the walls buckling and shifting, trying to trap them in a maze of steel and energy. But the pirates pushed through, driven by the knowledge that their only chance lay in destroying the heart of the ship. As they neared the core, the alien captain appeared before them in a blur, his form flickering with unnatural speed. With a roar, he unleashed a wave of energy that knocked the pirates back, sending them sprawling to the ground. "You cannot stop me," he bellowed, his eyes burning with rage. "I am the ship's will. I am its power." But Corin was already on his feet. He knew that time was running out. Thera, now. Thera's fingers flew across her console, her face set in grim determination. The ship's systems flickered, and then, with a sudden jolt, the core's energy fluctuated. The tendrils surrounding them began to slow, their grip loosening as the core's power began to destabilize. "No!" The captain howled in frustration, his form distorting as he attempted to reassert control over the ship. "You cannot take it from me." The pirates fought through the disorienting waves of energy, their bodies bruised but their spirits unbroken. They had made it this far. They would not be defeated now. Corin lunged at the core, his hands grabbing hold of the console that controlled its pulse. With a final, desperate effort, he pressed the override. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a violent shake, the core's energy collapsed. The tendrils fell still, the ship's hum faded, and the chamber went dark. The alien captain collapsed to his knees, his power drained as the connection between him and the ship was severed. His glowing eyes dimmed, and the once powerful warrior seemed to deflate, his strength evaporating with the loss of the ship's energy. The pirates stood, panting and bruised, watching as the last vestiges of the Deathworlder's power vanished before them. Corin turned to his crew, his voice steady, but filled with a mix of triumph and exhaustion. "We did it. The ship is ours now." But as they looked around the now quiet chamber, they knew one thing for certain. The cost of taking the treasure had been higher than they had ever imagined, and the galaxy would never forget the story of the pirates who dared to challenge the living weapon of the Deathworlders. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The ship that had once been alive with energy, pulsing with a power that seemed to control every aspect of the vessel, now felt hollow. The oppressive hum was gone, and the lights flickered weakly, as if the very heart of the ship had been torn from it. The pirate crew stood, battered and bruised, their breaths heavy in the still air. They had defeated the Deathworlder captain, severing his connection to the ship, and for a moment, it seemed like the ship itself had surrendered. Corin wiped the sweat from his brow, his hand shaking slightly as he holstered his weapon. He had known this mission wouldn't be easy, but they had made it. The Deathworlder's greatest weapon was now neutralized, and the treasure they had been seeking, the true purpose of the ship, was within their grasp. But as they looked around, a strange feeling lingered in the air. They had expected riches, something tangible to mark their victory. Instead, they had uncovered a nightmare, a legacy that had been hidden for a reason. And now, that legacy was theirs to deal with. "Is it over?" Thera asked, her voice hoarse from the dust and the exertion. She stood near the core, still glowing faintly, though its power seemed to have been drained. Her fingers hovered over the console, cautiously, as if afraid it might spark back to life. "We've stopped the core," Corin said, his voice low. "The ship isn't going to attack us anymore. But the question is, what now? We came here for treasure, but all we found is a tomb, a weapon that's far more dangerous than anything we could have imagined." Goro grunted, rubbing his sore arms. "I don't know about you, but I didn't sign up for this. A whole ship full of Deathworlders, and that damn captain. This wasn't the treasure I had in mind." Corin shook his head, still processing everything. "There's more to this ship than we realized. The Deathworlders didn't just build it to travel or fight. They built it to survive, to endure. This isn't just a warship, it's a monument, a record of their legacy. They fused themselves with it. Everything they were, it's here." Thera turned to him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean, everything they were?" "You're saying the Deathworlders didn't just build this ship. They became it." Corin's eyes darkened as he approached the console. Exactly. The Deathworlders weren't just using technology. They became part of it. The captain we faced, it wasn't just a leader. He was a part of the ship. He controlled it, lived with it, became one with it. This ship was a living weapon, and it seems like the Deathworlders. They evolved to survive in it. They became something else entirely. Part machine, part organism. Thera was silent for a moment, taking in his words. If that's true, then what does that mean for us now? What happens to the ship? I don't know, Corin admitted. But there's something else we need to understand. We didn't just defeat a crew of pirates or a band of soldiers. We've destroyed a sentient weapon. And that means the galaxy will never forget what we've done. Goro scowled. And that's supposed to make us feel better. We've pissed off whoever was connected to this ship, whoever made it, and they're not going to let this slide. Corin nodded slowly, his eyes flicking to the viewports that showed the vast, empty reaches of space beyond. I know, but we've already crossed the line. We've taken on something far bigger than we expected. This ship is a relic, a remnant of a civilization that used to control entire star systems, and we've just become its new masters. The galaxy's not going to take that lightly. Thera stepped forward, her face grim. Then what do we do now? Do we just leave it here? Walk away from all this power, knowing someone else will come after it? Corin's lips tightened as he considered her question. No, we can't walk away from this. This ship holds more knowledge than we can ever hope to understand. We have the power to learn from it, to control it, if we play our cards right. But we need to be careful. The group fell silent as the weight of Corin's words sank in. They had come for treasure, for riches. They had found something far more valuable and far more dangerous. The Deathworlder ship, with its sentient heart and its terrifying history, was now theirs. But what would they do with it? Corin turned to Thera. You said you were able to access parts of the ship's system. Can you download anything useful? Anything we can use to understand this place better? Thera nodded. I've already downloaded some data from the core, but it's fragmented. There's a lot of encrypted information about the Deathworlders, their history, their culture, but it's incomplete. There's also a lot of information about the ship's systems, its weapons, its design. We can probably use it to make the ship functional again. Goro's face lit up. Weapons? Now we're talking. If we've got the whole ship at our command, we could sell that kind of firepower to anyone willing to pay for it. Corin looked at Goro sharply. We don't know enough about the ship yet. We need to figure out what it really is before we start thinking about profits. We've already seen what it can do, and I'm not sure we want to awaken something worse than what we've already encountered. Agreed, Thera said. We need to study it carefully, understand how it works. If we play our cards right, we can use its power to our advantage without triggering any more of the ship's defenses. But we need time. Corin sighed, rubbing his temples. Time. That's the one thing we don't have. Once the word gets out about what we've done here, we'll have bounty hunters, governments, and maybe even other factions coming after us for the ship. We need to get off this planet, and we need to move fast. He looked around at his crew. We've won, but the war's far from over. The Deathworlders were just the beginning. We have no idea who else might come after this ship, but we have to be ready for them. Thera's face hardened with determination. Then we'll be ready. We can make this ship ours. But we have to be careful. It's not just a ship, it's a weapon. And we're playing with fire. Corin gave a nod of agreement. All right, let's get everything we can from this place. Thera, keep working on the systems. Goro, help her out if you can. I'll get the ship ready for takeoff. We're leaving this place with the knowledge of the Deathworlders, and we'll make sure no one else can get their hands on it. The pirates set to work, moving quickly but cautiously, aware that what they had uncovered was far more than they could fully understand in the short time they had. The Deathworlder ship, once a deadly relic of a forgotten civilization, was now under their control. But with that control came a burden, the weight of its legacy, its power, and the knowledge that they had just stepped into a galaxy filled with dangers they hadn't even begun to comprehend. As Corrin watched his crew move about the ship, preparing for the next phase of their journey, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had only just begun to uncover the true extent of the Deathworlder's influence. The galaxy was a vast place, and the ship's secrets were only the beginning. Their adventure was far from over. And the story of the Deathworlder ship, now in their hands, was about to change everything. The Deathworlder ship sat ominously in the quiet expanse of space, its silhouette dark and imposing against the backdrop of distant stars. The pirates, now the ship's reluctant masters, had left the deadly planet behind, their course set toward the unknown. Corrin stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the star map as the ship's engines hummed softly beneath him. It was an eerie calm, the quiet before the storm. He couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had taken, what they had unleashed. The Deathworlder's legacy, once hidden deep within the ship's core, was now in their hands, and with it came a power they barely understood. The ship had systems that no one could fully fathom yet. It was ancient, more sophisticated than anything they had encountered, and it was only a matter of time before others would learn of their victory and come to claim it. All systems are functional, Thera reported from the nearby console, her voice steady but filled with the same unease that lingered in Corrin's chest. We've got full access to the ship's databases, but there's still a lot of encryption. Some of it looks like it's biological, almost like the ship's own DNA is part of the security system. Corrin nodded, running a hand through his hair. That makes sense. The Deathworlders didn't just build this ship, they became part of it. It's not like anything we've seen. But we need to know everything about it, and fast. We're not the only ones who will want this power. Right, Goro added, standing near the airlock, adjusting his weapon as if preparing for an impending battle. There are more out there who would love to get their hands on this ship. The moment word gets out, bounty hunters and mercenaries will come out of the woodwork. Not to mention the governments, corporations, hell, maybe even the Galactic Police. Everyone will want a piece of it. Corrin turned to face him, his expression hard. We can't let that happen. We keep this ship under wraps for as long as we can. If anyone finds out what we've got here, we'll be fighting a war on multiple fronts. The Deathworlder's enemies, whoever they are, won't stop until this ship is in their hands. Goro snorted. Yeah, but can we really keep it hidden forever? Sooner or later, someone's gonna track us down. And the ship's not exactly easy to hide. Corrin's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the ship's warning system suddenly beeped, cutting through the tension. Thera's fingers flew over her console as the screen lit up with a series of blinking red alerts. What is it? Corrin asked, his voice edged with concern. Incoming signal. Thera answered, her face pale. It's a standard frequency, but it's not local. It's coming from deep space, far beyond our usual travel routes. Whoever's sending this knows exactly where we are. Corrin's heart skipped a beat. The ship had been fully operational for less than an hour, and already someone had found them. Can you trace the signal? Thera shook her head, her frustration evident. It's scrambled. I can't pinpoint its source, but I can tell it's powerful. Someone's tracking us, and they're not far off. Great, Goro muttered, slinging his weapon over his shoulder. Just what we needed. Corrin gritted his teeth. Can we block it? Jam their signal. I'm working on it, Thera said, her fingers moving faster. But it's not just a simple transmission. This is a tracker. They've got a lock on our coordinates. If we don't do something soon, they'll be here before we can react. Corrin's mind raced. They were in uncharted territory. The Deathworlder ship might have advanced technology, but it wasn't invincible. Not if someone had the right tools or the right knowledge. He had to act fast. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Corrin barked, his voice now filled with urgency. We need to get out of their range before they can pinpoint us. The crew scrambled, each member moving with the practiced precision of pirates who had faced more than their fair share of life-or-death situations. Goro moved to the weapons bay, preparing for the worst. Thera worked at her console, desperately trying to scramble the tracker, but Corin knew their chances of outrunning whatever was coming were slim. As the ship jolted into motion, the stars outside the viewports began to streak past. Corin's fingers tightened around the controls, trying to outpace the mysterious tracker that was hunting them. But it was clear they weren't going to escape easily. The warning system blared again. This time, the alert wasn't for the signal. It was for an incoming ship. A massive vessel, far larger than their own, was approaching fast. Corin cursed under his breath. I knew this was too easy. They found us. Thera's eyes widened. It's not just a random ship, Corin. This is a warship, highly advanced. And it's not slowing down. They're coming for us. Corin felt the cold edge of fear settle in. This wasn't just a pursuit. Whoever was coming for them wasn't here to negotiate. They had no idea who or what they were up against, and they would likely take any measures necessary to get the ship. They're not giving us a choice, Corin said grimly, locking eyes with Goro. We have to make a stand. Thera, can you get the weapons online? Thera's fingers flew over the console again. I can try, but the systems are still not entirely stable. It'll take me a few minutes to get full control of the weapons. Enough time for them to tear us apart, Goro said darkly, checking his weapon once more. Then we make our own time, Corin replied, his voice hard. We'll fight, but we need to be smart. The Deathworlder's ship is powerful, but we need to learn how to use it. The massive enemy warship loomed larger in the distance, now closing in. The stars outside began to blur as their ship veered sharply, trying to make evasive maneuvers. But the pursuing ship matched their movements, staying right on their tail, the size and strength of its hull overwhelming in comparison. Corin made a quick decision. Goro, get to the weapons. Prepare for an all-out attack if we can't outrun them. Thera, keep working on the systems. I'll take the helm. We need to make this fight happen on our terms. The crew moved into position, the tension thick in the air. They were pirates, fighters, survivors, but they had never faced anything like this. Not with a ship that was alive. That was part of something far greater than they had ever imagined. They were about to make a stand for the Deathworlder ship, an ancient weapon, a lost legacy, and a prize that could turn the tide of power in the galaxy. But they were also standing at the precipice of a war they couldn't yet fully comprehend. Corin took a deep breath as the enemy warship fired its first salvo. It was time. The price of power had come. And now, they would see if they were truly ready to pay it. With the first blast of energy tearing through the void, the battle began. But in the back of Corin's mind, a terrifying thought lingered. What if the Deathworlder's enemies were just the beginning? What if the galaxy itself was about to change forever? The fight for the ship was only the first chapter. The real battle for survival had only just begun.